right now there aren't enough cybersecurity experts. And since women are, 50% of the population, I urge, all women to consider getting trained in cybersecurity, because there are jobs that aren't going filled, and we need that diversity in this market to make things better and to catch the bad guys.
I'm Drishti from the Engati team, and today we have the pleasure of welcoming Tina Gravel to our interview series. I would like to do just a quick introduction of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels, 30,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by INC.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, Tina is the SVP Global Channels and Alliances at Appgate. Appgate brings together a set of differentiated cloud and hybrid security and analytics products and services. Tina has over 25 years of indirect and direct sales and customer service support in IT, with a special emphasis on blockchain, IoT, AI, AR, security, and cloud computing. She is an experienced, results-oriented, and self-motivated professional with a strong record of accomplishments in firms with high growth and those in turnaround mode. She has super communication skills and significant international experience. So hi, Tina. Welcome to Engati CX. We are really thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you for having me as well. I'm happy to be here.
So I would like to begin with the first question that we have for you. Is do you think that this is the decade of digital threats? And how can business start acting against it? And what should be the preventive measures they should be taking?
Well, I believe that it's not a question of when you'll be breached. If you'll be breached, it's a question of when. The fact is that for the last 15 years, we've heard, actually 20 years now, we've heard of various exploits that have been happening, from Stuxnet to others. Nation states are motivating, and there are vast operations, large operations that are funded by countries that are, actually their whole motivation is to steal secrets and steal, funds from various businesses and individuals. And we have to do something. You can't just, put your head in the sand, if you will. And so, there's various things that you can do. My company, Appgate, has tackles a very specific aspect, a couple of very specific aspects of the market. I don't believe that any company yet can do everything and to protect someone from all of the nefarious individuals out there. There are things that can be done, but it takes a lot of different solutions, and it takes smart people in order to, integrate these things. And I think that's one of the issues that's happening. I think that many executives are confused and overwhelmed by not only the problems, but also the solutions. There's just so many.
That is absolutely right. And of course, I guess with the wake of COVID, these digital threats have been much more than it would have been in the normal rates, I guess.
Well, absolutely. So what we've seen, especially, here in the States, we've seen it, and I imagine you have there as well, is that we have seen a working from home scenario.
Right.
So companies do not want big groups gathering within their four walls, and so they've sent their employees home. And what's happened is their networks and their in-house VPNs and their various communication devices have been overwhelmed. The other thing that's happened is many of the employees are using their own devices, and that has created enormous attack surfaces, if you will, for the bad guys to be able to break into what we call the company jewels and the very important assets that various firms have.
Like, I've heard that one of the solutions to combat these things is something called as zero trust that organizations implement. So how does, like, if you can explain how does zero trust work, or what exactly it means, and how organizations can benefit from that?
Absolutely. So zero trust is a little bit confusing for folks because zero trust is really not a product. It's a security concept. It's centered on the belief that you shouldn't automatically trust everything. When we had four walls of an organization and we knew all of our employees and we had a WAN, it was fairly easy to make sure that everyone within the four walls of the company was who they say they are.
Yep.
But with the advent of cloud and software as a service, our credentials are getting stolen on a fairly frequent basis. And as such, we have to imagine that the folks that are accessing our systems aren't who they say they are. It's not that we don't trust our employees, it's that the credentials may have been stolen. And so we have to assume that whoever is accessing may not be who they are. And so we have to verify anything and everything that's connecting to the systems before granting access. That's one of the tenets of zero trust. There's many things about zero trust. There's 7 main tenets of it, but that's one of them. And it really didn't become hot. A hot topic until recently. And COVID and working from home have made it even more important because, as you can imagine, if we're working from home and we're using home networks and bringing our own devices, people are getting breached, right? Imagine I am in a coffee shop. Someone has stolen my credentials, perhaps. I'm accessing my company's trusted assets. And if there's a traditional VPN, all they're seeing is an IP address. They're checking, they're saying, oh, it's Tina, let her in, right? There's no contextual checking. That doesn't work anymore. You need something else. And that's, of course, what my company, Appgate, does, is that we go a little further.
Right. That's true. And maybe something that people should implement, maybe even after COVID, when people are inside offices, so that as work from home is going to become more normalized, so if there is a solution already in place, so we can, as organizations, prevent these things from happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, we actually know that companies didn't expect COVID. We didn't either, and so we'll give it away for free for 90 days, and they can try it. And if they don't need it in 90 days, and everybody goes back to the office, then that's fine. But we think that they'll find that this protects them so much better that they'll be happy with it and they'll use it. There's something else, in addition to replacing a VPN that no longer can protect you properly. There's also this concept within zero trust called least privilege. So what happens in a company today is that also with access, with zero trust also kind of looks at each person and says, what do you need access to? In addition to checking exactly who you say you are, we also want to look at what you need to do your job, and then just provide access to to those things within the company that you need. So for instance, let me provide an example to that because it may be confusing how I just described it. I'm in sales and marketing, so I require access to Salesforce. I don't require access to the finance system, but I might require access to the commissions system. But I don't need access to operations system. It's things like that. So by limiting my access, if for some reason I make it through the contextual checking, let's say someone has taken my credentials and our tool Appgate has asked the extra contextual variables and said, okay, is Tina who we think she is? Does she have the right antivirus? Is she coming in from the right IP address? Is this the right time of day? You can ask all of these questions and they get it right. Yeah. Even if they're able to get in, they can only access those assets that I'm allowed to access. And then they can't lie in wait and they cannot move laterally. Everything else is cloaked. They're not allowed to see anything else. They can't see any of the other servers. So that again is a zero trust tenant or concept, this concept of least privilege that is practiced as well.
Yeah, that's actually nice to practice as a whole wide organization where there are these different departments and you need access only to certain resources. So
that's right. In the past, we would just say, okay, VPN, let them in, and then they just have access to everything. There was no discernment around what you really needed to do your job. And that's caused lots of difficulty.
That's true. That's right. Most of these traditional companies are still hesitant to adopt these technologies or automation. So what, according to you, can bring a change in this thinking?
Well, research suggests that cybercrime damage is going to cost the world $6 trillion next year. Okay, so we have to do something. Zero trust sounds like a big step forward and a lot of work. Many of the companies that we speak to in our course of our daily job think that it's more complex than it is. You can start with just getting the access right. Looking at groups of employees and making sure that, one, they are who they say they are. And you can do that by simply accessing, connecting our tool Appgate to Active Directory or some other simple spreadsheet that has some variables in it. It's not hard to implement. You could be up and running in a day. And that way you have additional protection beyond a simple VPN. Over the time of work from home, we were hearing stories that VPNs would stop working at a certain number of users. And so some companies were having to time, they'd let certain number of users work with a system from 10 to 11 because the VPN couldn't handle all the users at once. Not only was it not designed to be a security tool, but it's also, they're not as scalable as they could be. So it's really important that folks look for a very scalable solution to their needs now with this working from home situation and in the future. And then, that's an easy thing to put in. And then they can look at, segmenting access later around least privilege if they want to. But something as simple as just getting the access management right, it's not a big lift, and they can work towards becoming a zero trust firm if they so desire. It's not hard.
Yeah, it's always any solution that would be coming in. So step by step, if the organization can go about implementing that, so even when there is a very huge or large organization, they can still go about implementing that.
That's absolutely right. We have a customer that has 50 employees and they use it and they love it. And we have another, we have massive worldwide customers that are in the thousands of users. That's sort of one of the hardest parts of this, is that you can't really narrow it down to a certain, ideal customer profile, because it really suits everyone at this point.
That's true. So, what role do you think can tech, AI, and automation play in prevention from these digital threats?
That's a great question. AI is very, very promising. What we're seeing is that AI can eliminate a lot of the noise that we see in cybersecurity issues. In SIM tools, we see a lot of the SIM tools embracing AI, and then eliminating some of the threats that are duplicitous, or things that really aren't a threat. They're just a notification, if you will. So that people that are monitoring these systems only see things that are absolutely critical for them to see. So it's very important stuff. We are actually using it in our fraud detection products, and it's extremely useful. Now, one thing to be cognizant of is that we understand that the bad guys are using AI as well. So it's just something to think about. We need to go quicker, and we need to activate these tools, and the firms out there need to embrace them, because it's a race. It's like an arms race, right? We're all using these tools. We're all testing these tools. The bad guys have them too.
Yeah. It's more about how better you can use, not just use, but how better, like how efficiently you can use a technology and, make it better than the other, like the others unethical sections that are there. So, yeah.
Well, and I also want to put a little plug in there for using for women to join this field. There aren't enough women in cybersecurity, and my experience in working with women is that most women love to be on teams. They're very collaborative. They love working in projects and hacking, this sort of ethical hacking. There's lots of aspects of cybersecurity that would benefit from having women involved. And right now, there aren't enough cybersecurity experts. And since women are 50% of the population, I urge all women to consider getting trained in cybersecurity, because there are jobs that aren't going filled, and we need that diversity in this market to make things better, and to catch the bad guys, because that diversity will make us better at this catching and achieving our goals, if you will, catching the bad guys and achieving our goals.
That's true. So. What role do you think technology can play in developing cybersecurity solutions to meet this growing customer gaps and shortfalls?
Oh, that's a great question, and I don't think I don't know if any human can answer that. I think that technology. I've been involved in technology now myself nearly 30 years, and it continues to surprise me, baffle me, excite me. Every year there's something new. No one could have predicted what the internet has done for our daily lives. No one. And I think we're going to see the same thing with 5G, IoT, edge computing,
Yes.
AI, blockchain, all of these technologies. Advanced robotics, we're going to see, all of these things are going to impact our lives as well. I can't predict how. I see, I do a lot of research and I see, aspects of these things coming, but I'm actually very excited about it because I think that all of these things can improve, our daily lives. Some of the technology just being applied to the COVID vaccine testing has helped make that go faster. Things that we couldn't have done had this happened 20 years ago. It gives me hope. Technology will make humans better. We'll be better off because of it. I don't think that we'll be worse off. There's a lot of talk about how AI will be bad for humans. Robots will take over the world, and that I don't think so. I think that there's reason, and there's a lot of things about humans that that's special. That AI will do certain tasks, and humans will be needed to do other tasks, and that will be for quite a long time to come. We've been predicting that the mainframe will be obsolete now for 30 years, and there's still a place for it, and a very important place for it. Just ask IBM about that. So I don't think that there was a long answer to a very short question, but a very, very important question. I think technology has wonderful capabilities, and I think great things are to come, but I have no idea how to answer that,
Yeah, that does make sense. And of course, the fact that technology is not going to replace humans, it is just going to help us do better tasks and not the repetitive tasks that we are doing, which is like a boon to the humankind. Like currently, when we have these technologies with us, we are surviving COVID. But if it was like you just said 20 years ago, maybe we would have all just stopped working, and God knows what we would have done. So yeah.
That's right. I mean, let's just use a perfect example is spell check. Okay, spell check in Word. Okay, or Google Docs or whatever. Spell check is something that we use all of the time now. If you had prior to that, I mean, I remember when we didn't have that and how you had to read every word so carefully because you didn't want to show up with a spelling error. And that's improved my life immensely. And that's just a tiny little, program that we take for granted now. How many of those are we using in our daily life, right? And how many more will we have to come? So
that's true. So any other thoughts that you would like to share concluding the interview?
Well, I would really like to urge anyone that's interested in employing Zero Trust to consider contacting Appgate or me. I can be reached at tina.gravel@appgate.com or tgravel on Twitter. Very easy to find. Where Zero Trust initially came from was Forrester Research about 10 years ago. And like I said, it's taken a while to take off. But this book talks a lot about Zero Trust and methods, and by Chase Cunningham, who is a Forrester executive. There's a foreword by one of our executives, Greg Tuhill, who used to be CISO for the U.S. government under the Obama administration. So I think you'll find this a really interesting book, and there's a lot about Zero Trust in here that I think you'd find useful. There's also some scary stuff about nation states, so don't read it before you go to bed. But I have to put a plug out for this because in talking about Zero Trust, this is where it all started at Forrester. Gartner also has their their name for Zero Trust, and they're also doing a lot of research on it as well. I think every large integrator and consulting company has a practice around it now. So you can find help in many places.
That's great. So thank you so much, Tina, for giving us your time, the insights that you have shared, and especially around how Zero Trust can help organizations. I think that should be very helpful, and the audience is really going to enjoy and learn from this interview that you have shared.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good evening, good day, good morning.
Yeah, we'll be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned, and we'll see you around for the next one. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.